What is going on, gang? It is Friday, so you know what that means. It's another training log. I'm Carl Ragavan, Europe's original starting strength coach. This is Beautiful Strength, and welcome to the show. This is last week in Scotland. So it was a good week. Even had a little knees up, a good turnout. At least a dozen people came out for a leaving drinks, which was great fun. So always appreciate it when you spend 12 weeks at a space and you start to make some real friends. So yeah, it was a good bunch of guys at Titan Strength, guys and strong girls. So yeah, had a lot of fun and I'm going to miss you guys. My heavy day is split into kind of like an upper lower, you could say. On Thursday, my press was 130 kilos. Again, what's interesting is I've kind of realized, because I've been on a very Spartan amount of reps and sets, I can kind of get away with it with the lower body stuff because the numbers are pretty heavy. But there is a level of practice to doing heavy singles on, say, a press. So that's probably why the needle hasn't moved so much on my presses. So 130 for a single. So looking further down the road, I'm probably going to at least have to get 3 triples of a heavy weight on my heavy day. So food for thought there, if that's something that you've done, if you've pulled back on how many singles. But the other way goes around too as well. If you're someone that's still on 8 singles, sometimes that's not manageable to get 8 heavy singles. When the weight's light and you're pussy, then you can crack out on 8 singles, no worries. But when the singles are over body weight, right, and plus body weight, then the amount of heavy singles you can do, big difference. Same goes for the pin press, a high pin press with 165 kilos. Again, I've done a lot heavier. And again, it relates back to this same theory that I think I've just been too Spartan with just doing a top single at press and pin press. Just need to add a couple more on this day. And I think progress will start rolling again. Have a look at those videos. This has been kind of like the bane of my lifts of late. I feel like I just can't put it together. And again, I think it relies solely on a frequency problem. So kind of similar to what I just explained about heavy singles on the press. The Olympic lifts do have a big skill component, and just doing a token single isn't been enough stress. And it shows. So 110 I got, but I tried to be sneaky and went for 130 to kind of blow past this 120 that's been bugging me. Of course, same kind of issues happened like previous on 120s. It's just a glorified high pull. My brain can't sink and get under the bar. And yeah, I think it's just I need more practice of doing heavy cleans in the program if I want to get back to like 140 and above on clean and jerks, which is noted, will be programmed accordingly. And as anyone knows, programming for yourself is probably the hardest person to program for, and that's kind of how I've been. Like, I've always had colleagues and other SSC coaches that I would ask for help about my lifts, but I've always coached myself. And I've always made the hard mistakes. So I'd rather experiment on myself first, and then I have more wisdom that way. So that's just how I work. So the lifts on the clean and jerks, 110 was a make, 130 was a fail. And then I just did a 190, which also felt really strange, even though I dropped the weight considerably, but still felt kind of weird. So yeah, have a look. Squats. So on the squat, I've had some issues with getting past 240 for 5. So this has probably been like the 3rd week now where 240 has been on the program, and I'm like, okay, let me retry. Let's see what goes on. And again, kind of like a similar experience to last week, felt heavy. So I was just like, no, I'm going to rack this and I'm just going to do a YOLO single. What's weird is the 260 I did after this felt really good. Kind of wanted to go for 270, but left it there. I think, again, this is a case of just programming is coming to a head on the squat. You know, I did 275 in the gym back in Estonia, the Palace of Progress, I call that place, Sparta. So, and then after that, 12 weeks later in Bologna, I did 250 for 5. So during that phase of getting my 250 for 5, again, that was at my peak best 5s. I haven't exceeded or been that strong again on 5s. So 240 is still a very challenging weight. And again, with all the attributes of travel. So like I already mentioned in previous videos, the 2 weekends ago, or shall I say 3 weekends ago, I went to a weightlifting meet to coach my boys. And then the week after that, I did a huge road trip in Harris. So things like this do affect us, right? And it's just mindful to know that and not to get too stressed and worked up about it. I still feel really strong. I'm just not at my best set of 5 numbers. But yeah, watch this space. I still think I've got some decent squat strength in me. So we'll see how next week goes. But 240, 260, singles look fine. You know, it just felt heavy as shit when I did the 240. And finally, the rack pull. So 320 on the rack pull for 4 reps was my all-time PR. And I knew, it's a funny one. Sometimes you can know this during the set. I knew I had a good solid 3 reps. But again, taking into account how everything's been feeling, satisfied to stop at 3 and called it a day. So that was my full last heavy day wrapped in a tight little bow in Scotland. So if you like this show, comment, like, share, subscribe. You know the business. I'm Carl Ragavan. That was Beautiful Strength. And remember, the barbell never lies.